A is taking a picture. Okay, so now A is the photographer for today. And yes, A is taking a picture of a couple of people. And B is included in those people. Okay, so before A started to take pictures, A did clearly say, hey, please everyone, for this picture, do not try to pose, just stand still. Okay, so A did say that. However, I guess B was not listening. B was not paying good attention. Okay, so B has his little pose that he always does whenever he takes any kind of a picture. So something using his hands. So he keeps lifting his hand. Okay, so A is going to start today's conversation by saying, hey, I said 10 times, please don't pose in any way, shape, or form. Just stand still. Why do you repeatedly lift your hand? That's how A will start today's conversation. Why do you repeatedly lift your hand? Why are you doing that? Okay, Nadia, hi, 안녕하세요, 안녕하세요. Okay, so of course, placing do in a question sentence that already has a verb as an auxiliary verb is not something that you would do in 한국어. So I'm going to omit it. And of course, I'm talking to you, be. Okay, so we're going to use the adverb repeatedly as a way of saying keep ing. Why do you keep lifting your hand? Okay, so as a way of saying something like that, we're going to use the adverb repeatedly. Okay, and of course, I'm talking about your hand. Okay, and we have the adverb why. Okay, so yes, we have a sentence. So now, this time, of course, I'm going to go by the order of the object first, and then the two adverbs, and then the verb. We're going to go by, yes, the standard way of doing things. Okay, so let's first place the object hand. 손. Okay, so of course, I don't have to give it an object particle. Giving an object particle just because it is the object are the rules of poetic Korean. However, what if I do have a you, a reason? Yes, right now let's say I'm going to give the object an object particle for reason you number 2 in order to imbue the nuance of frustration or surprise into the sentence. Because, yes, A, when he was starting to take pictures, he did tell everyone, hey, for this picture, please do not pose, just stand still. He said it about 10 times. He made it very clear. Okay, but B was not paying attention, so he keeps trying to do something with his hand to pose. So A is frustrated. Okay, so I'm going to give the object an object particle for reason number 2 to automatically imbue the nuance of frustration. Okay, so 손을, 손을, 손을. Okay, now, yes, we have two adverbs. We have why and repeatedly. Okay, so since they are both adverbs, can we say the order between the two is just completely arbitrary? Well, I would say no. Yes, although, yes, the order between the two adverbs sometimes does not make a gigantic difference. I still would say, yes, sometimes you can on purpose decide which one comes first, depending on which one you want to emphasize more, right? Once again, the general theme of Korean grammar, the later it appears, the more important it is. So once again, yeah, if I were to apply that theme, it means between the two adverbs, yes, I'm going to have the one that is being more emphasized come later. Okay, so once again, this will not make a night and day difference. However, sometimes it kind of does make a night and day difference. I'll show you a good example. So, yes, this is an example that I sometimes share, right? Let's say I am with a friend. I was looking this way. So, however, and there was a friend right behind me. Okay, so let's try it again. So, I was looking this way, and behind me there was a 친구. And this 친구, for whatever reason, suddenly smacks me on the back of my head. He smacks me. Okay, for whatever reason. Okay, so in this type of a situation, in Korean, it's going to be a little bit of a different sentiment. I'm going to say something like this. Why do you suddenly hit me? As a way of saying, why would you do something like that? Why would you do something like that? Why do you suddenly hit me? Okay, so of course, no do and no you. So we have two adverbs. Once again, I'm going to show you why. In certain cases, yes, deciding the order between between two or even three or even more adverbs can be quite important. Because in this case, I am going to make sure, I'm gonna make sure that suddenly comes first. 갑자기. And then I'm going to make sure that Y comes later. And then 때려요. Of course, it comes from 때리다. I will inflict it into 때려요 according to the rules of inflection route number 1, right? So why is that? Why am I going to make sure that Y comes later? Because, yes, once again, the general theme of Korean grammar, yes, the later it appears, the more important it is. So, yes, if I say it the opposite way, 왜 갑자기 때려요? Now, imagine what could happen. Now, it makes a night and day difference. Because if I say 왜 갑자기, now I'm emphasizing suddenly more. So now I'm saying, why do you hit me suddenly? Why do you suddenly hit me? I like being hit. I'm okay with that. You can beat me up all you want. But next time, at least let me know 3 seconds before you start beating me up. That's what it sounds like if I say it like this. 왜 갑자기 때려요? Okay, does that make sense? So, that's why sometimes taking into consideration the general theme of Korean grammar, the later it appears, the more important it is. Can, yes, be very, very, very important. Okay, because, yeah, that's not what I'm saying, right? I'm not saying, why do you suddenly hit me? No, I'm saying, why do you suddenly hit me? Why would you do something like that? So I'm more focused on why. So that's why, yes, sometimes it's not very, very important, but sometimes it kind of is. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Should we continue? Okay. So, right now, yes, I am almost going to make sure that, yes, repeatedly comes first. Once again, I'm not going to say that you always have to be perfect when it comes to deciding the order of two words. We are people. Sometimes we start saying things and then along the way of building a sentence, only then remember that, oh, maybe I should have included this word. So things like that happen because we are human beings. I'm just saying, yes, if you can methodically plan out the order of all the words in your sentence, well then, yes, take into consideration the general theme of Korean grammar. So, once again, I will emphasize that you can make mistakes. Koreans make mistakes with this as well. But anyway, right now, because I'm going to be very methodical, I'm going to have repeatedly come first. So I'm going to use a version of repeatedly, however, the annoyed version. So this version of repeatedly, 자꾸, is usually used when the speaker is giving off a little bit of an annoyed nuance. So 자꾸, repeatedly. So yes, A is annoyed. A said, hey, don't do anything. Don't pose or anything. Just stand still. Okay, but B, yes, is lifting his hand. So A is saying, hey, why do you repeatedly lift your hand? So 자꾸 왜. Once again, if I have 왜 come first and then 자꾸 later, now it could sound like I'm saying, why do you repeatedly lift your hand? I said just lift your hand once, not repeatedly. So that's why I'm not going to say it like that. That's not what I'm saying. I said don't lift your hand at all, not even once. So I'm saying, why do you repeatedly lift your hand? Okay, 손을 잡고 왜 and then 들다, lift, a version of lift. 들다. Okay, but of course I don't want its display form, right? I want its actual form in present tense. So let's go get the 요 ending from inflection route number 1. Okay, so we are in the L or R situation, right? And we know exactly what to do, right? So, 요. We are in inflection route number 1 because of 요, and we are in the L or R situation when the display form that you are using ends with the L or R consonants. Okay, so what are the rules in this situation in inflection route number 1? Yes, you will apply the 3-step formula. Remove 다, place a or all as the middle section, and then now you can attach the ending. So 들어요, 들어요, 들어요. So now we have the actual form, present tense of lift, which is lift. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? So, not all adverbs are built through the same mechanism, just like in English. Okay, so wait, let me first finish the sentence. So, a lot of times when you see adverbs, you would see 개 or he at the end, right? 개 or he. Now, does it mean that all adverbs are made into adverbs through this mechanism? No, just like in English, it's the exact same concept. So, now, if you see a word that ends with ly in English, they are adverbs. However, are all adverbs words that end with ly? No, because soon can also be an adverb, again can also be an adverb, already can also be an adverb. So it's the same exact concept. If you see a word that ends with ly in English, yes, usually it's an adverb. However, not all adverbs are made an adverb through the same mechanism. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Should we continue? Oh, sorry, didn't place lift. Okay. Place a question mark. Okay, so now one more thing. Now, whenever you are asking a question, I always emphasize that your voice has to go up. You have to, yes, change the pitch at the very end, last syllable, right? 손을 자꾸 왜 들어요? However, there is one exception to that. When, yes, technically on the surface level, superficially, it takes the form of a question. However, when the speaker is not actually asking a question. So right now, A is saying, hey, why do you repeatedly lift your hand? However, yes, A is not literally asking a question. A is not really curious about the reason why B is lifting his hand. A is just saying this as a way of saying, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, does that make sense? So, in that case, yes, it will take the form of a question. However, we will not raise our tone, the pitch at the end. So, yes, I will place a question mark, but my tone will just go straight and say, 손을 자꾸 왜 들어요? 손을 자꾸 왜 들어요? 손을 자꾸 왜 들어요? Okay? Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 넘어갈까요? It could be sometimes. Yes, it depends on the context. Is someone really asking a question or not? So the verb repeat would be a completely different version. You will at least have to know 4 versions, but we'll talk about it later. You'll at least have to know 4. So the same concept in English. So sometimes if you see adverbs that end with ly, it means that you just took an adjective, slow, and just attached ly to it so that now you can use it as an adverb. So yeah, sometimes you can do the same thing in Korean, right? So like 차분하다, calmly. 차분하다. Okay, so yes, I'm going to take the display form of calm and I'm going to change it into calmly. Either I can use method number 1, changing 다 into 게, or I can change 하 into 히, right? 차분히. Because I made an adverb using, yes, a source. The display form of an adjective. I took an adjective and used it as a source for me to make an adverb. However, not all adverbs are made like this through this mechanism. Once again, yeah, again can be an adverb. It doesn't come from an adjective necessarily, right? I didn't just take an adjective and attach ly to it. So some adverbs are just born to be adverbs to begin with. So we don't have to take an adjective and apply some kind of a trick to, yes, change it into an adverb. Okay? So, now let's take a look at what B has to say. So, now B, once again, when A was saying, hey, for today's picture, do not pose. Just stand still, please. B was not paying attention. So B did not hear A saying this. So B is going to say, oh, well then, should I just stay still? Should I just stay still? Okay, so you can feel A fuming, right? Yes, A is saying, yes, I was saying that over and over again. You weren't paying attention, I guess. Yes, please. Okay, so yes, we have, of course, no I. Of course, I'm talking about I. And I'm going to take the verb stay and give it the should, however, plus question mark ending, right? We're going to use an ending that is quite unique, the should ending, because this ending can only be used as should, but when it's a part of a question. Okay, and we have the adverb just, and we have the adverb still. Okay, so yes, we have the verb should stay still. Should stay, and the adverb just and still. Okay, so right now I'm going to go by the same order because I want still to be more emphasized. Oh, should I just stay still then? Don't do anything? Don't move? Okay, so yes, a version of just could be 그냥, right? 그냥, just. And then, yeah, you at least have to know 3 ways of saying still, right? Number 1, which one are you going to use? Are you going to use 아직 or 아직도? Are you going to use 그래도? Or are you going to use 가만히? So, you have to know all of them, right? These are the big 3 in the sense that you have to know them. Okay, so 아직 or 아직도 is used when you're saying still as a way of just indicating duration of time, right? Okay, so for example, when you're saying 3 hours ago, I was hungry, 3 hours later, I'm still hungry, or whatever, still full, whatever. So when you're saying still, just to indicate duration of time. Number 2, 그래도, when, yes, according to the context, you can change still into regardless. In other words, when you are saying still to indicate that a factor does not greatly or influence the other, another factor. So once again, according to the context, when you can change still into regardless. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Let's say I was waiting for my 친구. So we were supposed to meet here at 4 p.m. So it's 4 p.m. So I call my friend. And let's say it's 4:15. I call my friend and my friend says, oh, I'm sorry, heavy traffic. I'm still on my way. Okay, so my friend says, give me 10 more minutes. So now it's 4:30. I actually gave him 15 more minutes. So he's still not here. So I'm going to call him again. And he says, I'm sorry. Once again, heavy traffic. I'm still on my way. Okay, so in that case, I cannot change still into regardless. My friend cannot do that. So therefore, I know that he's just using still for reason number 1, simply to indicate duration of time. My friend is just saying, oh, 15 minutes ago I was on my way, 15 minutes later, right now, I'm still on my way. Just duration of time, nothing else. Because once again, yeah, I'm not using it for reason number 2 because I cannot change still into regardless. Because if my friend says, oh, I'm on my way regardless, I would be super confused, right? Because it makes no sense. I'm gonna say, what do you mean regardless? Of course you should be on your way. Regardless of what? We were supposed to meet here at 4. Of course you should be on your way. So yes, once again, when you can change still into regardless within the given sentence, context, then use version number 2. If you cannot, and therefore you're just using still to talk about duration of time, then 아직 or 아직도. Okay, so the long version, once you add the extra syllable, you automatically sound a little bit frustrated or surprised, right? So there's a nuance difference. But anyway, duration of time, once again, to indicate that a factor does not greatly or influence the other. In other words, when you can change still into regardless. Okay, but those aren't the only 2 reasons why you would say still in English, right? There's a third reason, when you're simply talking about absence of movement. When you're saying, don't move, stay still. Okay, so 가만히 would be the version that we want right now. Does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Should we continue? Okay. So, yes, that's what I mean. Yes, this is exactly what I mean by, of course, there are a lot of reasons why I always say that, but I always say, well, often say, 자주, misunderstandings don't come from wrong translations. Because if you blatantly give me a wrong translation, yeah, I'm not going to misunderstand anything. I understand that there's a language barrier here. So, misunderstandings actually come from correct translations when that correct translation is giving off the wrong nuance. So, for example, if my friend says, yeah, let's say, the new movie or whatever, new Marvel movie, whatever. Let's say, my friend says, I wanted Iron Man to be in the movie, but I guess Iron Man is not in the movie, but I still like it. Yeah, in that case, yes, he should have used number 2, 그래도, because he can change still into regardless. Oh yeah, I like it regardless. It's a good movie. It would have been better with Iron Man in it, but it is what it is. Okay, but let's say my friend thought that, oh, they're all just still. There's no difference. So I just used 가만히. So if my friend says, 가만히 좋아해요, I still like it, I'm going to be super confused. Okay, so like, you can't move when you're watching the movie? So is that like a rule or something? Okay, so that's what I mean by, yes, misunderstandings don't come from wrong translations. They come from correct translations. Because translation-wise, there's nothing wrong. It's still, still, still. Okay. So 그냥 가만히. So 그냥 가만히, and then a version of stay, 있다. Yes, 있다 can do a couple of things. One of the things that it can do is to play the role of the verb stay. Okay, so I don't want its display form. I want the should plus question mark ending according to the rules of inflection route number 2. So let's go to inflection route number 2. Okay, so we are in inflection route number 2 because of the ending that we're using, the should plus question mark ending, 엘까요? So once again, the question mark is already built into this ending. That's what makes it a little bit unique. Okay, so yes, we are in inflection route number 2, and we have the S situation, when the display form ends with an S once ta is removed. Okay, so for the most part in this situation, I'm going to apply a three-step formula. However, if I have one of the typical 5 exceptions, I will apply a four-step formula. Okay, so is 있다 one of the 5 exceptions? Because if it is, I have to apply a four-step formula. Is it one of the exceptions? No, exactly. No, it's not. Okay, so yes, you always have to be aware of each and every aspect of inflection. You cannot develop something called a comfort zone when it comes to inflection. Yes, because you never know which word you're going to use with which ending. Okay, so yes, it's not one of the 5 exceptions. So therefore, I'm going to apply a three-step formula. Remove 다, place 으 as the middle section, and then now I'm ready to attach the ending. 있으, and then 일까요? 있을까요? 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 So should I stay? Okay, so if you go to my TikTok bio, you will see PDF files that lay out all the rules that altogether constitute the concept of inflection, in other words, conjugation, known as conjugation, but there's a very technical reason why I prefer not to use the term conjugation, right? But anyway, okay, so if you go to my TikTok bio, you will see the links to the PDF files. Okay, 있을까요? Should stay. Okay, so yes, now B is saying, should I just stay still? So we have the whole 문장 천천히 읽을게요. 그냥 가만히 있을까요? 그냥 가만히 있을까요? 그냥 가만히 있을까요? Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 넘어갈까요? Should we move on? Okay. So now A is fuming here. Okay, A is about to snap, but barely, yes, controlling himself because once again, yes, A said this about 15 times, let's say. Please don't pose for this picture, just stand still. B was not paying attention. Okay, so now A is going to suddenly switch mode into honorifics version number 1. Okay, so honorifics version number 1 is not used normally in conversational Korean, right? So don't speak like this. Don't speak honorifics version number 1 for no reason. The only reason why I'm going to have A speak suddenly in honorifics version number 1 is because yes, there's a very specific reason. So honorifics version number 1, a way of speaking in which your sentences end with 니다, 니까, usually, but also sometimes 시다. Okay, so yes, honorifics version number 1 is not a way of speaking that is used in normal life conversations, right? It's more so used in other formats of Korean, such as poetic Korean, textbook poetic Korean, soldier Korean, or playful Korean, or professional Korean. Okay, however, even in normal conversations, sometimes people could suddenly, 갑자기, switch mode into honorifics version number 1, right? And one of the reasons why people do that is when, ironically speaking, they want to sound serious but playful at the same time. Ironically speaking. Okay, so now A is going to say, yes, I was saying, when B says, should I just stay still? A is saying, yes, what do you think I was saying all this time? You weren't listening. So let's please stay still. Okay, so when A is saying this, A wants to sound a little bit playful. Why? Let's try to understand A, because I'm sure that as sentient human beings, we can all relate to this. So You know when you're super angry, but you don't want to like completely snap? So, yes, you're barely controlling yourself and you're trying to sound like a little bit playful with like a smile when you're like barely controlling yourself. So that's what A is doing. So A is really trying very hard to keep a smile and try to carry like a playful tone. Because if A, yes, doesn't do that, A is afraid that he's about to snap. Okay, but at the same time, so he wants to be playful for that reason, but at the same time, he really seriously means this. Let's please stay still, because if you don't stay still and move one more time, I will snap. Okay, so that's why A wants to sound serious, because he seriously means it, but also playful at the same time, because he's really trying hard not to get more angry. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Exactly, yes, we sense danger here. Okay, okay. So, yes, in honorifics version number 1, a way of speaking in which your sentences end with you, I always say the best way to place let's with a verb is to not place it at all, right? Okay, so, well, in honorifics version number 1, yes, there is an ending that you would use as let's. However, yes, you wouldn't really speak honorifics version number 1 to begin with, 자주, often. At least you shouldn't. Okay, so this time I'm actually going to give stay the let's ending, but the let's ending in honorifics version number 1, and we're going to use the adverb please. Now, yes, in Korean, in 한국어, yes, please is not used that often because please is only used when you are desperate or when you are frustrated. There are other ways, a lot of other ways to imbue a polite nuance into a sentence. Using the adverb please is not one of the methods that you would use to do that. Okay, so when you are desperate or when you are angry. Okay, so we know the version of still that we will use. Okay, so now A, yes, is going to say, please stay still. Please don't move. Okay, so still will be a little bit more emphasized. Okay, so let's place 제발 first, please. Okay, 제발. Okay, and then now, just like sometimes in English, so we have the adverb little, right? 조금. Now there's an abbreviation of it, right? A short version, 좀. Now, 좀 can sometimes, yes, literally mean little. It's just a short version of it. However, sometimes it can just serve as a filler word to imbue the nuance of frustration. Okay, so I'm going to use 좀 right now for that purpose. Okay, so I'm right now just using it as a filler word. 좀, to imbue the nuance of frustration. Okay, so if you actually really pay attention, close attention to people speaking Korean, of course, I'm talking colloquial Korean, not other formats of Korean. Yes, you would hear 좀 mixed in every now and then. So 제발 좀, of course, only when they are frustrated. Okay, and of course, whenever I say this is only for frustration, this word, this grammar form, this ending, now, I'm not always only talking about the very serious type of frustration. It can be also like a casual, cute little playful frustration. But anyway, right now, A is seriously frustrated. Okay, so 제발 좀, and then 가만히. We know which version of still we will use. 제발 좀 가만히. And then, yes, we know the version of stay we will use 있다. But once again, I'm going to give it the let's ending, but the version of it of honorifics version number 1. The let's ending, honorifics version number 1 version. Okay, so yes, that ending, the let's ending within the format of honorifics version number 1 is an ending that belongs to inflection route number 2. Okay, yeah, so we have the same inflecting situation. Yes, we have 있다, and we have to apply the rules of inflection route number 2. So the 비시다 ending. 비시다 ending. Okay, so the let's ending, but within the format of honorifics version number 1. Okay, so the inflecting rule is exactly the same. Remove 다, place 으 as the middle section, and then now you are ready to attach the ending. 있읍시다. 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 Let's stay. But once again, do not speak honorifics version number 1 for no reason whatsoever. The only reason why A is doing it because we have a specific 이유. Okay, so 제발 좀 가만히 있읍시다. Yes, it is awkward. That's why I'm saying don't speak like this. So once again, if you actually speak like this in a normal situation, yes, it is extremely awkward. That is the point. Okay, so yes, now we have the whole 문장. 천천히 읽을게요. 제발 좀 가만히 있읍시다. Okay, so try to feel the nuance that A is seriously frustrated, but A is trying to control himself. 제발 좀 가만히 있읍시다. 제발 좀 가만히 있읍시다. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 넘어갈까요? Should we move on? 종, thank you. 감사합니다. 꽃 감사합니다. Okay. So now we have the whole 대화. 천천히 읽을게요. 손을 자꾸 왜 들어요? 손을 자꾸 왜 들어요? 그냥 가만히 있을까요? 제발 좀 가만히 있읍시다. With more 속도, speed. 손을 자꾸 왜 들어요? 그냥 가만히 있을까요? 제발 좀 가만히 있읍시다. With extra 속도, 손을 자꾸 왜 들어요? 그냥 가만히 있을까요? 제발 좀 가만히 있읍시다.